Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationships, and it's by user ThrowThisAccountAll72, regretting letting my close friend, 19 female, stay and live with me, 20 female, and need a nice way to tell her to leave. A week ago, a close friend of mine for over 3 years called me sobbing, saying her dad was choosing his girlfriend over his own daughter on Father's Day and asked if she could stay the night. I said yes, and then 2 seconds later, she called me again and asked if she could stay for a while until she could go back to university in New York. I said yes because she's really helped me in the past, but I can't have her stay here anymore because I'm uncomfortable and really regretting my decision. Plus, if my landlord finds out, I'll be kicked out since she isn't on the lease. Here are some of the things that I'm struggling with. She brought large suitcases into my apartment and throws her stuff all over the floor, then leaves all day with her boyfriend so I don't get a chance to ask her to pick up her stuff. Her boyfriend shows up randomly whenever, when I'm in my pajamas, when I'm in the shower, whenever. I have to stay up late waiting for her to come home so I can lock the door and go to bed. I have to drive her places, I have to pay for her food, and I have to make sure she's comfortable in my environment because that's just the situation I took on. I'm feeling suffocated and drowned in my own apartment. I am paying a lot of money to be living alone with my pets and do not want a roommate. She's so sensitive, so when I brought up the subject a couple of days ago, she just started crying. But this is taking such a toll on me. I am so stressed, I can't even sleep right now. I'm feeling like she's taking advantage of me, especially since her dad has texted her since saying how much he loves her and misses her and wants her home. She won't call him no matter what I suggest she do, and as much as I love her, her issues are creating an uproar in my life and I don't want to deal with it anymore. She won't get a job or spend money on a plane ticket to go back to New York because she doesn't want to leave her boyfriend so soon. And just a few minutes ago I had to tell her to be quiet. She was laughing and giggling on the phone with her boyfriend and it was past 12 a.m. because I have a job interview tomorrow in the early morning. I don't want to have to deal with this anymore. This weekend was my boyfriend and I's romantic beach trip, and I was feeling uneasy knowing she was just at home, mooching off of my Wi-Fi and watching my TV and eating my food. And then when my boyfriend and I got home, we couldn't relax together or anything because she was sleeping on my couch and her stuff was everywhere. I need to ask her to leave, but I need to do it in a sensitive way so as to not hurt her feelings or destroy our friendship. I'm planning on asking her as soon as I wake up tomorrow, so I need some help now. Thank you all. I'm feeling like an awful person for this, but I have to put myself first, and I've really tried to make it work, but I can't handle it for a month, especially since I'm doing college over the summer and can't keep another person alive with my busy schedule. Also, one more thing. I just want to say that I'm paying extra to live alone because growing up, I was a foster child and lived with lots of different families and had a lot of my stuff stolen. Now, after lots of hard work, I actually have a place to call my own. It feels incredible, but now I'm feeling like my sanctuary is being destroyed because of her, and the thought of getting kicked out because she's living here literally breaks me out in a cold sweat. Some peace of mind would help me too. I'm sorry it's so long, and I typed this on my phone too, so ignore any grammar errors and whatnot. Well, OP, in my opinion, it sounds to me like you're really bending over backwards and going out of your way to be sensitive towards someone who isn't sensitive towards you, or doesn't respect you at all, I would say. You were trying to help out a friend in a time of need, and that's what you did, but then she just took advantage of it, absolutely. First, it was just the one night. A few seconds later, it was until she has to go to college. Now she refuses to get a plane ticket because she doesn't want to leave her boyfriend? Well, then have her go live with her boyfriend. Also, whatever issues she has with her dad, well, that's something that she needs to address, and it's not something that you should have to foot the bill for. I feel like you're missing something here in order to get what you want, and I think that's called a spine. You need to stand up for yourself and tell your friend that she's overstaying her welcome and really hurting your relationship. After that, you give her a time frame. You need to move out by this date, and that's it. As some people have said in other posts and in the comment section of my videos, don't set yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm. Don't lose the place that you love because you're trying to help out somebody who's taking advantage of you. And what do you guys think about this whole situation, or what would you do if you were in OP's shoes? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Apple Kicks says, "Hi friend, I took you in as a guest, and due to my situation, and I hope as a friend, you understand why you need to move out and go through with the original plans and go back to university. Settle things with your parents, or even move in with your boyfriend or another friend. This is becoming too expensive for me, and I can't afford to feed you, and my bills will go up with 2 people living here. Sad to say there isn't enough room for 2 of us in my apartment long term. You knew this coming in, and I think X date is fair and enough time for you to make new arrangements if you haven't started already. In the meantime, you can make inventory of your items because I keep finding them all over my apartment and I don't want you to lose any when moving out. If she cries, cross your arms and wait, or put your arm on her shoulder and say something like, 'I know you're upset and I'm going to give you a moment to process your feelings, but we still need to talk about you finding a new place to stay.' Remember the phrase, givers have limits because takers rarely do. You've given a lot more than most friends. If you have no boundaries, she won't think to stop otherwise." Adam V says, "It seems to me she's a spoiled brat, and when her father tried to make her have some responsibilities, she bailed. Know that she didn't say she was kicked out. She must have left because she'd rather live the easy life at the cost of someone else. You. I don't recommend this, but you could lie. The landlord found out you're living here and said he'll kick us both out if you don't leave. The right thing to do would be to sit down with her and tell her you agreed to let her live with you until she was able to fly to New York. If she tries to guilt trip you or give excuses to stay longer, tell her her habits has made your living very uncomfortable and annoyed in your own home and the landlord thing." Queen of the Damned says, "I think using the landlord lease problem is a valid way to tell her it's not going to work out without having to make it personal. The other problems could be addressed if you were actually allowed to have a roommate, but you're not. You could tell her your landlord recently spoke to you about keeping guests for extended periods or something. I once let a few friends stay with me, and because I was afraid to rock the boat, it turned into months and I got evicted. You could seriously mess up your own life and place of residence by letting this friend stay. Her being a bad roommate could be the least of your problems." Alright, well, the community is definitely telling OP that she needs to confront her friend and tell her that she's overstayed her welcome and leave. Now, OP didn't reply to any comments, so I don't have any additional context to give you, which means we're gonna hop on straight to the update. The next morning after I made the original post, I woke up early and stepped out into the living room to find piles of dog poop, her underwear strewn throughout the apartment, and some torn apart books. The only thing I asked her to help me with is to make sure my puppy went potty before she went to bed and back into his crate so he doesn't destroy anything. I was so close to walking up to her and making her leave right then and there, but it was me wanting to act out of anger, so I decided to let it go until I came home because I wanted to speak to her rationally and I had a job interview and I didn't want to get myself worked up. I cleaned up the mess and got ready and left. I was planning on discussing her stay as soon as I got home, but a few hours after my interview and as I was walking to my apartment door, I got a call saying I got the job. I was so ecstatic I ran into my apartment jumping for joy, and since she was a close friend, I wanted to celebrate. I guess circumstance got in the way of that, but it was okay. I was too happy to deal with it. That night, she stayed on the phone talking to her boyfriend past midnight, and I asked her to please be quiet because I have to get up at 5 in the morning for college summer classes. She did, sorta, and I cursed myself for not saying anything to her. The next day, I told her to stay with her boyfriend because I wanted privacy with my own boyfriend. The day after that is when my phone was blown up by her text messages and her phone calls. I didn't answer the phone calls, but the texts were all variations of, "When will you be home? Can you unlock the door? Are you home?" etc. When I did get home, she and her boyfriend were waiting outside my door. I was carrying a bag of dog food, probably heavier than me, and none of them offered to help. They just stood there as I fumbled for my keys and tried to balance the food on my leg. When I finally got the door open, they both walked in and made themselves at home. I was sort of having a stressful day due to school and lack of sleep the night before and the messy apartment, and I really needed some alone time. After her boyfriend left, I sat down with her on the couch and gently brought up the subject of her leaving. I told her she can't stay here anymore due to school, my new job, the puppy, and my landlord. I said it wasn't an adjustment I can't afford to go through right now. She cried and cried. I asked her what she was going to do and where she was going to go. She said she will stay at a campsite, and I said, "What about your boyfriend?" And she goes, "I don't want to bother him." So then I suggested calling her dad, and she cried even harder. He's texted her and apologized and said she can come home, but she won't call him because she feels like his sorry isn't valid and he's not going to change. She said she doesn't want to call him because she doesn't want to risk hurting the relationship anymore. When I said that not calling him will most likely damage the relationship in the long run, she yelled at me and said she isn't going to call her dad no matter what. At this point, I got up and walked away to my room. I was feeling suffocated by the toxic situation. Oh, she also said she wasn't going back to New York early because she didn't want to ruin her boyfriend's summer. So, yeah. Then, a couple of hours later, I hear her sobbing on the phone to her boyfriend. Things about her dad and about me and not being able to stay here. It was 1 in the morning again, and I had to ask her to be quiet, get off the phone, or step out onto the balcony, and she did. I still put earplugs in to sleep. When I got up at 5 a.m. the next morning, there was poop on my living room floor again, and I gently sat next to her and said, "You have to leave by today." And she immediately started crying and said, "My boyfriend said I can only stay at his house 4 times a week." I said, "Sorry, call your dad," and she kept crying. I started to explain how I love her and I'm trying to be sympathetic, but she was dragging out a problem that could have been solved already. She said okay, and when I got home that afternoon, her stuff was gone, and she ripped up the piece of paper that I wrote her name on and stuck it above a shelf I cleared off for her to use while she stayed here. You're welcome. I am so relieved. Extended from OP's comments, I agree that this was a learning experience for setting up my boundaries. I've never been in a situation where I felt like my boundaries were being overstepped, to be honest, so I turned to unbiased advice on how to handle it. In my daily life, I'm very proficient at letting people know what is and isn't okay with me. This situation, however, was a little different because she was a close friend to me, like a sister, and I wanted to treat her gently. She really did have a rough day, and if she truly was staying with me for a couple of days, I had no problem taking care of her. Everyone needs a little bit of tenderness, especially after a rough day and they are feeling vulnerable. However, when she said she was planning to stay until school started, that's when I knew she had to leave, and I wanted to do so in a kind way. I don't feel like being kind to her for a few days was being a doormat, nor do I think I am a doormat and that people will abuse my kindness. And just to be clear, I wasn't trying to portray myself as a victim. In fact, I said that I regretted my decision and therefore I acknowledged the situation I put myself into and need a way out. One last thing. I wasn't trying to convince anyone of anything. I just wanted to let people know exactly what happened to the best I could remember, and just so happened to give details. The devil is in the details. I appreciate all of your constructive criticism of my character, and I hope this cleared up any confusion. Smiley face. Thank you to those who commented on my original post. I was feeling weak because she was a close friend and I didn't want to hurt her feelings, but I was being taken advantage of and I had to gain my space back. More importantly, I had to remove myself from a toxic situation. The day she left was when I immediately felt better about everything. I feel gloomy since she got here, since all she did was cry and complain and exhaust me. Also, I typed this on my phone, sorry for any mistakes, and I'm sorry that it's so long. I had a lot to say and get off my chest. Well, OP, at least this whole situation is over, she's out of your house, and hopefully you guys can keep being acquaintances at least. I don't know if you're gonna be great friends after this, but you know, whatever. At this point, I'm gonna call this a happy update because she left your house and you seem to be growing a spine, so that's very good for you. Take care, OP, and all the best in the future. Now, let's move on to the next post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Meowschwitzentree. Won't let me plant sunflowers? Fine. The story happened a couple of years ago, but it's my favorite lawyer story, and I hope you enjoy it. None of the following is legal advice. Don't take legal advice from randos on the internet. The client walks into the office and asks us for a contract review. He then hands over an HOA contract. Before slogging through the whole HOA contract, I asked him what he was hoping to accomplish. "They want me to dig up my sunflowers," he says. "Your sunflowers?" I asked. "Yes, I planted a row of sunflowers outside my house. They pranced by and said that sunflowers are not allowed per the contract I signed, so I want you to tell me if that is true or not." "Sir," I said, "before anything else, I need to tell you that this will likely be an hourly fee bill. HOAs are notorious for dragging things out, so these could quickly become expensive sunflowers." He then says, "I don't care. This is America and I should be able to plant sunflowers, damn it." Still thinking he wasn't that serious about sunflowers, I asked for a 3-hour retainer. He immediately pulled out a checkbook and paid for 4 hours. So I buckled down to review the alleged anti-sunflower clause. Just for reference, the sunflowers he wanted to plant were really big, 5 feet tall, and all along the front of the house. It was a very substantial amount of sunflowers. The contract did indeed contain a clause with a very thorough list on which plants were and were not allowed to be planted. The list had just about every plant I could think of in alphabetical order. Think apple, banana, cauliflower, dill, sunflowers included. Corn was not included, which becomes very important later. Quick legal point. If you write "no dogs allowed," it is normally assumed that you are talking about all dogs generally. If you write "no labs, golden retrievers, or poodles allowed," it is normally assumed that all other dogs are allowed. Sometimes, a not great attorney will write a super long list to pad hours, read, charge more, instead of just writing "no plants without prior approval" or something. I called the client back in for the bad news. In explaining the above legal point, I let him know that the HOA got a raw deal from whoever drafted the contract. I said to him, "No can do on the sunflowers, but if it makes you feel any better, they were probably overbilled by whoever wrote this contract. Pretty shoddy work too. They even forgot to write down corn, but they included nonsense like dragon fruit." "So, yes to corn, no to sunflowers?" he asked. I didn't really check the contract for corn, but it's not prohibited in the plant section, so probably? Then he said, "Excellent, that'll work." I thought he was oddly happy with the bad news. Then, 2 or 3 weeks later, he came in with a picture of his house, surrounded by huge sunflowers. What happened? This guy drove out to the country and bought obnoxiously large and ugly corn stalks. He promptly planted them where the sunflowers had been. When confronted by the HOA, he told them, and paraphrasing, to "suck it, the contract lets me plant corn." Then, after some negotiation, he agreed to take down the corn in exchange for permission to plant sunflowers. Now we are friends and he is still a great client, and he lives surrounded by a ridiculous moat of sunflowers. This type of malicious compliance I just love. Thank you so much for sharing, OP. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.